Washington, D.C. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. The U.S. Supreme Court is refusing to get involved in the national debate over the redefinition of marriage. Today, the High Court turned away appeals from states looking to uphold traditional marriage. Our Wyatt Goolsbee is at the Supreme Court tonight with more. Wyatt?
Brian, the decision not to take up appeals from 5 different states this session on the topic of redefining marriage comes as a surprise to many. The justices today did not comment on the issue, so without further explanation, different states right now are having to chart their own path. By not taking action, the Supreme Court has cleared the way for an immediate expansion of so-called same-sex marriage. 5 states were hoping the Supreme Court would resolve the issue of redefining marriage, but today's choice of not hearing the states' appeals means couples in 6 other states could be issued marriage license soon, making a total of 30 states where same-sex couples can marry legally, at least by default. Some advocates for redefining marriage have called it a victory for their side. The president of the Human Rights Campaign saying, quote, "Thanks to the Supreme Court, there is now sweeping guidance in 3 federal appellate circuits that declares marriage discrimination flatly unconstitutional. There is no reason under the sun for federal courts not to fast-track all pending marriage cases in light of today's news." But Kellie Fiedorek with the Alliance for Defending Freedom says it's not that simple.
This issue is far from over. Even though the Supreme Court didn't take this opportunity to review, there are still other circuits that are currently looking at and waiting to rule on marriage definitions.
Fiedorek's group is representing a Virginia county clerk who's advocating for a traditional definition of marriage as written in state law. Ultimately, Fiedorek says the issue should be one the states decide.
States may disagree. They have disagreed on how they're going to define marriage, but the authority should remain with the states and the people of those states to continue this very, very new debate on what marriage is, and a court should continue to affirm people's right to define marriage as one man and one woman.
Already the situation is changing very rapidly. Just this afternoon, the Commonwealth of Virginia began issuing licenses to same-sex couples. Experts had expected the justices to weigh in at least at some point during this session. So at this point, depending on how some of the appellate court cases still working out ultimately end up, the justices here may ultimately, at one point or another, may have to rule once and for all. Brian.
Thanks, Wyatt Goolsbee at the Supreme Court. And just as that news